All right, for your first assignment, you are going to be making a design that has a focus word in it. So, a focus word is kind of an alternative to a New Year's resolution. It can be used to guide your goals for the year, but it's a powerful word that means something to you. And you're going to make a graphic that uses that word and its definition. So, I have this sheet here that has links to lists of possible words if you don't know what you want to use. It has a personal account of how they chose a word, and then I have the procedure here. So you need to start by choosing what your word's going to be, and then you need to look at some fonts and kind of figure out like what type of combination you like. So you're going to use one font for your word and a different one for your definition. So you can search for font combinations or font pairings. And you may not be able to find the exact same font on your computer, but at least you can get some ideas for like what style you like. So right away, I see that I kind of like the Playfair display and the Source Sans Pro. So the Playfair, it's a bolder font and it's a serif, meaning it has feet. So that's the little like dashes at the end of the strokes that make the letters. And then Source Sans Pro is a sans serif, meaning it doesn't have feet. So it's a little bit cleaner. So I kind of like that. I also like um, some of these I'm seeing where it has more of like a handwritten, a scripty kind of font, if this loads here, with something that's a little bit more straight underneath. So maybe I'll use one of those combinations. So I'm going to open up Photoshop, and I already have one example here that I made yesterday with the word that I'm using that's intentional. Now I'm going to make a new document. So I'm going to go to File, New, or the shortcut is Control N. You can either make it the size of your phone screen if you want to have that as a reminder of your word, or if you don't want to do that, just make it a square. I do 8 by 8 inches and the resolution 300 pixels per inch. I'm going to hit create, and then I am ready to start. So I'm going to make a text box by going to my text tool, and I'm going to click and drag. For now, I'm just going to make it the whole width of my document because that's the easiest. And then I'm going to come up here, I'm going to make sure it's centered, and I'm going to type my word. And maybe I'll go ahead and choose a font for now, thinking about some of the combinations that I looked at and what style I liked. So I might try, that's kind of pretty. Try kind of a scripty font with a more plain one, and I can change the size. So you are not limited to the default sizes. You can type in any number here. So maybe I'll try 120. That's too big. 100. You can adjust it until you have it, exactly where you want it. Okay. And I'm noticing that on this font, because of the swoosh on the L, it doesn't feel centered even though it is. So I'm going to adjust it until it's in the visual center and move it over a little bit. That feels more balanced to me for now. I may adjust that more later. So now I need to get the definition of my word. So I'm going to go back, search for the definition. I'm going to copy and paste it. Done on purpose, deliberate. I chose this word because I want to be more intentional with my time. So I realize that, like a lot of you probably, I end up wasting a lot of time just like scrolling through my phone when I could be doing something, more important, more productive with my time. So I'm going to go ahead and change the font just to something simple for now, and I'll adjust it more later. I just want to get this pasted in there so I can see. Actually, I don't mind that combination so much. Yeah. You also could add the part of speech. You could add, right here where it shows how you pronounce the word. You could even copy and paste your word from when you search for the definition, it breaks it down into syllables. You could do that, and it depends on what style you like. So any of that is up to you. Okay, so I'm going to start now adjusting the placement. I want it to be down more centered. And I'm going to go ahead and make my background just a color for now. It doesn't have to stay that color, but just so I can kind of picture what I'm doing and start to plan out my next step. So I'm going to go to my paint bucket tool. The shortcut is just the G key. You can also do a gradient if you'd prefer, but I'm just gonna pick a color for now, and I'm feeling bluish. There's a blue. Now I'm going to make a translucent box, a shape behind my words that will kind of make it stand out more against the background. So I can go to the shape tool. It may be hidden behind the line tool. You can use any of the default shapes here. Um, Probably more of like the ellipse tool. You could make a circle or a rectangle, rounded rectangle, something like that. But you could also look at, what's available in the custom shapes, and maybe you would find one that works for you. I'm going to try the rounded rectangle, and I think I'll try this pale yellow. I might switch it to white or something like that. If you want it to be a perfect square or perfect circle, just hold down the shift key while you click and drag, and it's going to lock in those proportions. So have that. If you're using the newer version of Photoshop, it's going to add a stroke as the default. So if you click on that and then you select just the white rectangle with the red slash through it, that means no stroke, and it'll get rid of that. So that's something to keep in mind that's new. So after you have your shape made, you need to turn down the opacity. So on your layers panel towards the top at the right says opacity. The default is 100%. I would suggest you put it down to about 50 as a starting point, and then you can decide how you want to adjust it from there. You also can change the color. I kind of don't like that pale yellow anymore. Maybe I'll just go to a white. I could also do a darker color and switch the color of my words to white. You can play around with that. Just make sure that it looks intentional in the end. Make sure everything looks right. So now I can go back and I can play with my background a little bit more. So for this assignment, I do not want you to find a photo or a pattern online to use. If you want it to be something other than a gradient or a solid color, then you can make your own. So you could use the paintbrush tool. Actually, I'm going to hide my rectangle and I'm going to show you something else you could do. So I'm making a new layer here. I could just paint a shape. So sometimes that's kind of fun. It depends on what style you want. So I'm going to look at my brush options here. I'm going to pick something. I think I want maybe like a dry media brush, so it's a little bit uneven on the edges, and I want to make it big. Okay, so maybe I'll just do kind of an irregular shape here. And then I can turn the opacity down on that layer just like I did on the other one until I see how that looks. So I don't know. I'm not sure which one I'll use yet. I want to play around and show you some things you can do on your background. So I would suggest that you make a new layer on top of your background. That way you have that solid color there. So you could use a paintbrush tool and make a pattern. If you wanted to do like, you could do spirals. You could do any type of pattern that you want. That looks a little, just showing you things you could play around with. You could do, let's play with the gradient here. So I'm going to go back to my gradient tool. And if you go to basics and have the color fading to translucent, then you can kind of make a custom gradient. So I have it on the circle. If I do this, I'll get kind of like balls of light. That's what I did on my first example. Right here, I did that with white and then with yellow. So that's kind of fun. It kind of looks like an out of focus photo. So there's all sorts of things you can do. You're just going to Play around till you have something that you like. Um, let's see which way I like that better. I'm not sure on this one. I'll decide. Okay. So you also could make your words stand out more depending on, your design. If you right click on the layer, it'll bring up the layer styles. You could play with these options. Stroke will apply an outline of color all the way around. So that could be good depending on, what look you're going for. If you don't like it, just uncheck. You could do a drop shadow. You could do outer glow. That kind of makes it stand out. There's a lot of options there. But what you need to keep in mind is hierarchy. That's how your mind understands the design and what to look at first and what's the most important. So you need to choose a font that makes your word, your focus word, the focal point. It needs to be the first thing that you read and it needs to stand out more. And then your definition, that's kind of supporting it. It's the second thing you look at. It's not as important. So it should be um, smaller, it could be simpler, it could be less bold. It's below it, that helps too. But you have to intentionally think about how the viewer is going to see your design. So when you are satisfied with your design, you're going to go to File, Save As, which by the way, you should save as you go. Save on your computer, and then I want you to do your name, focus word, and then change Photoshop to JPEG. Save it as a Photoshop document while you're working, but then in the end, you want to switch to a JPEG, and that's what you're going to turn in because that will let me download it and be able to grade it and view it a lot faster than a Photoshop document. And that's all you need to do.